What up, everybody? Welcome back to some Time Games On! And I know I've been slacking on my gaming channel videos, so I'm going to try and pick it up a lot more, especially now that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is coming out in about 12 hours. So there'll be a lot more of these videos to come. So yeah, you can see I'm playing some Battlefield multiplayer, and I can't drive very well. But this is maybe my third time trying multiplayer. It's tough, man, and I'm having a real hard time playing the game. I'm not very good at it like I am at Call of Duty. I feel like I got my skills up in Call of Duty, but Battlefield is just, it's definitely more realistic. Unlike Call of Duty, a lot of crazy things, throwing hatchets and stuff like that is just ridiculous. But that stuff is more fun to play in a video game. So I don't know, those are just my thoughts on it. Battlefield was dope, but I just can't wait for the new Modern Warfare to come out, and I'll be pumping out a ton of gameplay and stories, military stories, because I really dig Call of Duty. That being said, let's jump into some stories, son. And oh, look at this guy. Like, he went through the truck. Did you see that? That's, I don't know, it's kind of glitchy, Battlefield. Anyways, on to the stories. And when last I left you, I was still in tech school, which is Police Academy. And I'm going to talk about some weapons training. Now, we fired in tech school, we fired the M249, the 9mm, M16, M60. There's probably a couple more I can't think of right off the top of my head. But I'm going to talk about the 203. Now, a lot of you guys and girls that play these war games know what a 203 is. It's like a grenade launcher that goes underneath the M16. And when I was in training, we fired the practice round, which is like, it has like chalk in it. So normally when you're carrying the M203 in the field, there's like 10 different rounds for it, but what they taught us on is the high explosive 40 microwave high explosive round that has like a 5-meter casualty radius. So if you dropped a 203 round within 5 meters of somebody, you could injure them. You might not kill them, but you could definitely injure them. But I never got to fire one of the high explosives. I just fired a bunch of the chalk rounds, which is really cool. But I remember when we were learning about the weapon, like in a classroom, we had to learn how to take it down, put it together. This is already after the M16, so we didn't know how to take them both apart. And the funny thing was, like, it's sort of like boot camp still, so you can get in trouble, yelled at for doing things wrong. You don't want to get yelled at. And I remember I was trying to take like the handrails off the 203 or something, and I was definitely not listening to the instructor on what to do, and I disregarded what he said, and I was pulling at it, and I had it like on this table. I remember it propped up, and it slipped out of my hands and smacked me right behind the ear. And if you look at the front sight post, it's actually kind of sharp looking. It just nailed me right in the back of the head. Boom. It almost knocked me out for like a couple seconds. I remember I saw stars, and I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to get yelled at and be called an idiot and all that. And I remember it was behind my ear, and like the back of my ear swelled up like a golf ball. I was bleeding everywhere. I'm like trying to hide it in the classroom. I didn't get caught, and I was able to continue with the training. So in training on these weapons for the first time in the classroom, we'd have to take them down and put them together in the time limit and then function check them. Once we did all that, then we'd go out in the range and get to fire them. And that was probably my favorite weapon to fire in tech school, was the 203. It was just fun. I think we had to fire about 15 rounds each, and it makes like this awesome noise when you shoot. It's like boom. And I remember I was probably the best shot out of my group. And it was cool because they had like tanks and stuff out in the range to shoot at, and then it would mark it with chalk to see where you dropped it at. And I was dropping them right on every single target. It was so much fun. It had a good recoil on it too, the 203. So you had to make sure you hold it in close to your shoulder. And while I'm telling you all these stories, I just thought of something that I could teach you guys, especially you guys and girls that really dig these military games. As you noticed in my stories, I always refer to everything as weapons, not guns, as weapons. And that's the correct way to say it when you're in the military. They drill that in your head in boot camp, tech school. Everything is a weapon, not a gun. And you don't go shoot a weapon, you go fire a weapon. They're not bullets, they're rounds. So that's just some stuff to keep in mind when you're talking to your friends about these games, for instance. And this way you won't sound like a noob. Oh, and also I forgot to tell you, I did fire the M249, also known as the SAW, which is a badass weapon. That is probably one of my favorite weapons to carry when I was on post. What I mean by post, I mean when I was into the regular military after tech school, and I would protect bases, you know, different Air Force bases. It would be a post I would carry the 249. So I did learn how to disassemble the 249 in tech school. So that was the same thing. You'd have to disassemble it, reassemble it, function check it within a time limit. And I remember I was the fastest in my class to do that. I was always good with taking things apart growing up. So when it came to that stuff, I was like killing it. Except when I busted myself in the back of the head with a 203. But other than that, I was really good. And we did go out in the range and fire the 249. The targets were different. It was like wood slats, and we kind of like just saw away the wood. I guess that's why I call it saw. But it was pretty dope. And with 249s, the barrels get hot when you send a certain amount of rounds through it. And if you don't swap the barrel out, the barrel would turn red and melt. So there was always 2 of us on the 249. So you have one person firing it, and you have an assistant gunner who would swap out barrels for you and ammunition, you know. I was lucky enough to get to fire the M249 saw again after the military. I think it was like a year after the military or 2. I went with my buddies Charles and Allie in Las Vegas, and I have video from that. We fired a bunch of weapons, but here's the 249. That's all. Let's do it. Whoa. Oh my God. Yeah. Now there's a whole video of that. We did fire a bunch of weapons. Gina fired weapons. Charles' sister, Melissa, Allie fired like this crazy shotgun that was pretty dope and epic. But I'll put a link in the description and an annotation. You can check them all out. Now another weapon I fired in training was the M60, and a lot of you guys and girls know what the M60 is. It's a machine gun. Rambo used it. It's an old school weapon. The M60 is kind of out of service now in all the military. They dropped it out of the Air Force while I was in still, and they went to the 240. But when I was in training, we still fired the 60. And the 60 is a badass weapon. It fires the big rounds, the 7.62 rounds. But the bad thing about the 60, it jammed a lot. It had a lot of problems. It would jam all the time. And I guess that's why they like had to get rid of it. But since they were getting rid of it, a lot of the CADM guys, CADM being the firing instructors, weapon instructors, were like just mistreating the weapons because they knew they were getting rid of it. So they were melting barrels, which was cool for trading. They could show us what happens when you send too many rounds down a barrel without swapping it out. And they did it. They fired like, I forget how many rounds through it. It got so hot it turned bright red and started melting. So that's pretty much it I could talk about as far as some of the coolest weapons I fired in tech school. I am going to get into the 9mm Beretta, the M16A2, which is an old school weapon. And I just want to thank you guys for all the awesome comments you leave in the videos. I read all of them. And you guys, I could tell that you're really digging the stories. You don't care that much for my gameplay, but I'm trying my hardest. When Call of Duty 3 comes out, trust me, I'm going to be showing you guys how to get down. So thanks for the nice comments. And thank you for all the favorites and likes. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it a ton. It helps a lot. And I'm definitely going to get into a lot more stories when the new Call of Duty comes out, because I really like that game. It was tough for me to get good gameplay with Battlefield. So that's definitely going to come up. And I can't wait to get into my first base after tech school. So I'm going to hear him try and rush through the rest of tech school to talk about my first base, which is when I got married, and top secret stuff happened on the base, which I can't talk about actually, but I could talk around it. So it's going to be pretty epic. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on Downrange Gaming, son!